bad movies are the best movies. Nothing quite makes me feel better about my lack of accomplishments, quite like watching someone else's usually extremely expensive failures. Cutting to the chase, this is the bad movie iceberg, and we're going to be going through all 198 entries and giving an overview of the plot as well as audience and critical reception. Quick disclaimer, this iceberg is massive, so we'll be breaking this up into multiple videos, as in one tier per video. So if you enjoy this one, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any future parts. And also in the description is a link to the original iceberg, which we stole and are working of. Now, real quick before we get into it, I just want to touch on the Golden Raspberry Awards because they're going to be referred to throughout this iceberg. So the Golden Raspberry Awards are also known as the Razzies, and they're kind of like an annual parodic awards show that practically act as like an anti-Oscars with categories such as Worst Film, Worst Actor, etc. And the best part is that you win a cute little trophy with a street estimated value at a whopping $4.97. Pretty great. Alright, got it? On to tier 1. Up first, we have 365 Days, a 2020 Polish erotic thriller directed by Barbara Belowis and Thomas Mandis. Definitely butchered those names, and I'm going to continue throughout this. I'm sorry, I'm not Polish. Oh, this film is so hot. It's so hot, so steamy, and so bad that it has a rating of 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Starring Anna Maria Sigluka and Michael Marone, I'm sorry again for the mispronunciation of those names, 365 Days follows the saucy yet romantic story of a sales director who goes to Sicily and is then kidnapped by a very prominent member of the Sicilian mafia, who then gives her 365 days to fall in love with him. It's very Stockholm Syndrome-esque, really, isn't it? The film was heavily criticised for its unnecessarily heavy sex scenes, its projection of sexual violence, and of course its glorification of the Sicilian mafia. But hey, at least it was a hit on TikTok when it came out. So the film won the 2020 Razzie for the Worst Screenplay, and it was also nominated for awards such as Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Actor, and Worst Actress. So the 1997 flick Batman and Robin, starring George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell, centres around the dynamic duo Batman and Robin, obviously, whose relationship is in turmoil. And then on top of that, they're battling against the evil Mr. Freeze, who is played by Arnie Schwarzenegger, who, after turning his ulcer on, is striving to turn Gotham City into an eternal winter. And then on top of that, they're also trying not to get seduced by the evil Poison Ivy, who's played by Uma Thurman. And on top of that, they're also trying hard to, salvage their friendship. There's a lot to unpack with this film. It's pretty dramatic. So whilst I don't find this film overly bad, per se, because what is better than a campy superhero movie? Audiences and critics did. This film was a box office miss. It's one of the lowest grossing Batman films this far, and it was criticised for its poor script, its messy storyline, and, of course, its campy atmosphere, which doesn't exactly fit the overall Batman aesthetic. The film was nominated for 11 Razzies, with Worst Supporting Actress falling into the hands of the lovely Alicia Silverstone for her portrayal of Batgirl. Battlefield Earth is a year 2000 sci-fi film starring John Travolta, Barry Pepper, and Forrest Whitaker. Travolta is obviously quite a prominent Scientologist, so he decided to spearhead this adaptation of Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard's 1982 novel, Battlefield Earth. Why, you ask? To bring the religion to a younger audience, of course. What could go wrong? And also, of course, because the source material is better than Star Wars. The film follows a rebellion against the alien Cyclops, who have ruled Earth for 1,000 years. Critical consensus stated that the film was ugly, campy, and poorly acted. Battlefield Earth is a stunningly misguided, aggressively bad sci-fi folly. which ironically is probably one of the nicer comments received by Scientology. Not only did Battlefield Earth have the honour of winning the 2000 Razzie for Worst Picture, but it also won the Razzie for Worst Picture of the Decade. Birdemic Shock and Terror is a 2010 romantic horror film written, directed and self-financed by James Nguyen. The film, inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, follows a software salesman and his supporting cast as they navigate an invasion of mutated birds. Now, why are these birds mutated, you might ask? Scientific experiments? Or maybe nuclear fallout? No, it's because they're because of global warming. Birdemic is notorious for its CGI. Or lack thereof, with stock MP4s of birds chroma keyed in, which, my god, is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I've seen pictures of Vienna. Now, you might not believe this, but this film was denied by Sundance, which forced James Nguyen into like a guerrilla marketing mode. Nguyen started playing the film in bars around the Sundance Festival, all while he drove an SUV covered in fake blood and bird droppings, and then also played the bird noises from the stereo of the car. Eventually, through word of mouth and I guess pure persistence, James Nguyen's film went viral. Cats. Released in 2019 and based off Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical of the same name, Cats made us all ask, what is this movie's plot? I thought this movie was meant to star Taylor Swift. And what was the reason for rendering these human-cat hybrids to have human hybrid cat bumholes? The film follows Victoria and the rest of the Jellicle cats, who are each preparing for the Jellicle Ball, an event where one old cat chooses another cat to die and ascend to heaven. Heavy stuff. Apart from its weak plot, awkward editing, rushed production, overall uncanny valley visuals, Cats suffers from actually all of these equally. Not even an all-star ensemble and a budget of 95 million American dollars could save this monstrosity from being clowned on by literally everyone who watched it. And as a musical nerd who actually really enjoys Cats, even I was pretty dumbfounded by this film because of those visuals and overall just poor everything of this film. I mean, the team spent 6 months producing the film's 2-minute trailer, leaving just 4 months to finish the entire 110-minute film. So take from that what you will. Cats won 4 Razzie Awards, including Worst Picture. Catwomen is a 2004 superhero film starring Halle Berry and based on the DC comic character of the same name. The criticisms of this film was directed at the performances, the direction, the CGI, the editing, the costume design, the pacing, the plot, the dialogue, and the unfaithfulness to the source material, which includes the lack of connection to Batman. So practically just everything to do with this steamy pile of dog poop. I mean, seriously, the costume straight up looks like a Wish.com BDSM kit, and not in a good way. Date Movie is a 2006 parody rom-com starring Alison Hannigan and directed by Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. 3 people that we'll be hearing more of down the track because they happen to be as great at their work as Steph Curry. But if shooting threes was making shit movies. In general, parody movies are pretty difficult to pull off well. Even though some of the greatest films ever made are parodies, it's just hard to interweave the inherent absurdist humour in parody with any meaningful substance and audience connection. Date Movie is a prime example of how bad a parody can be, being just an hour and a half of slapstick references to movies you'd rather be watching. The film follows Julia Jones, whose only character trait is that she's an obese woman who dreams of marrying Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah, that Napoleon Dynamite. And look, I couldn't tell you any other plot beat after that. The film won the Razzie for Worst Supporting Actress. Moving on. Starring Zac Efron and Robert De Niro, Dirty Grandpa follows the misadventures of a grandson and his grandfather as they embark on an NSFW road trip to Florida. The main criticism held against this film is its cheap use of shock humour in order to get laughs, which very rarely make for tasteful humour or for jokes that will sort of continue to hold up in years to come. And when your film incorporates homophobic, racist and sexist humour to get laughs, in this day and age, you might as well just bury the film and pretend it doesn't exist. The film was nominated for 4 Golden Raspberries, however didn't actually win any of. Hey, look, it's another parody movie directed and written by Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. If Date Movie was a steaming pile of dog poop, Epic Movie is a steaming pile of dog poop that was then eaten by another dog and then pooed back out. So where Date Movie parodied romantic comedies, Epic Movie parodies epic movies, which is a loose definition, but primarily references like The Chronicles of Narnia, Harry Potter, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Pirates of the Caribbean, and like X-Men. Much like Date Movie, it's difficult to summarize this film because again, it's practically just scene after scene of slapstick absurdist humour. So the film received 3 Razzie nominations, however it was lucky enough to be nominated in a year with a vast amount of shit films, so it didn't actually end up winning any awards. Okay, so if Epic Movie is a steaming pile of dog poop that was then eaten by another dog and pooped back out, Disaster Movie is a goddamn disaster of a movie. So finishing off the Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer section of this iceberg is Disaster Movie, which this time attempts to parody the disaster movie genre, and in incredible fashion, Disaster Movie is somehow worse than its deformed older siblings. Again, the film was panned by critics and audiences for its forced adult humour, its excessive pop culture references, and of course, poor directing. The film was nominated for 6 Razzies at the 2009 ceremony, but again, didn't take home any, which at this point is kind of impressive. To get an idea of how horrible this film is, it was Kim Kardashian's feature film debut, and yet got a worse IMDb score than the film that made her famous. Dragonball Evolution is a 2009 film based on the popular manga and anime franchise, Dragon Ball. I mean, at least it claims to be. I mean, just look at the character comparison here and you can extrapolate how closely consulted the source material was. Funnily enough, before the film's release, Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama expressed that fans should treat Dragon Ball Evolution as an alternate universe version of his work. Basically, that's another way of saying, hey, look guys, I ain't got anything to do with this, don't shit. Critics panned the film for its lack of faith to the source material, as well as its poor acting and cheesy script. Writer Ben Ramsey literally had to apologise for this movie, saying, "To have something with my name on it as the writer be so globally reviled is gut-wrenching. To receive hate mail from all over the world is heartbreaking. I went into the project chasing after another big payday, not as a fan of the franchise, but as a businessman taking on an assignment." Enes Batur has the most subscribed personal YouTube channel in Turkey, boasting an impressive 15.8 million subscribers as of the filming of this video. Now, he has a film, Enes Batur Haymal Mi Gerekmi, I'm sorry again for the pronunciation, please don't throw up, released in 2018, where Enes, playing himself, has to decide between going to college and being what his father wants him to be, or being a professional, successful, famous YouTuber. It's basically, it's Turkish High School Musical, just with no basketball, no singing, and no heart. According to critics, the quality of this film feels like that of a YouTube children's skit, which, I mean, makes sense because this guy's got quite a young fan base, but it's the kind of quality that doesn't exactly translate well to the big screen. You know, like where paying audience movie goers would be. With a cliche plot and horrendous acting, the film has been labelled as nothing more than a vanity project by the YouTuber, according to certain reviews on IMDb, and should be avoided at all costs. So although Food Fight physically looks like a foreign ripoff of a DreamWorks film, it's surprisingly an original animated 2012 comedy featuring the voices of Charlie Sheen, Wayne Brady, and Hilary Duff. Set in Marketropolis, where in true Night at the Museum style, the brand mascots from different supermarket products come to life after closing time, Dog Charlie Sheen teams up with other supermarket brand mascots to prevent the evil icon of Brand X, Lady X, from taking over their world. Considering the signs that the universe threw at this movie, I mean, the entire film was literally stolen. It's insane. Someone must have really spoken to the heart of the director to insist on this thing's inception. The film was denounced for its excessive use of product placement, especially considering the film's, very juvenile target audience, its bad direction, and of course, its hideous CGI. Okay, so it's not just Hollywood producing stinkers. Our very first Bollywood entry comes from the 2014 action drama Gun Day. Gun Day is a story about two best friends and outlaws who fall in love with a cabaret dancer, which then causes rivalry and misunderstandings between the two. Even though the movie had criticisms directed its way due to its cliches and overall hyper-sensationalized action, the movie was panned for its inaccuracies regarding the independence of Bangladesh and the exaggeration of India's involvement in the process. Some reviewers have gone on to claim that the movie mocks the Liberation War, which is a point of pride for Bangladesh. Jack and Jill is a 2011 comedy directed by Dennis Dungan and starring Adam Sandler, Katie Holmes, and unfortunately, legendary actor Al Pacino. The film has Adam Sandler in a dual role playing an advertising executive who is put in the awkward situation of trying to convince his obnoxious sister, who is also played by Adam Sandler, to date actor Al Pacino, who plays himself. Adam Sandler has been in some absolute stinkers throughout his career, but Jack and Jill has probably got to be the stinkiest. Some have since considered this to be one of the worst films ever made. At the 32nd Golden Raspberry Awards, the film was nominated for a record 12 Razzies in all 10 categories. It actually became the first film to sweep the Razzies, winning in each category, including Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Actor, Worst Actress, and Worst Screenplay. Laxmi is a 2020 horror comedy film written and directed by Raghava Lawrence, who is remaking his own Tamil film, Kanchana. The film revolves around a man who gets possessed by the ghost of a transgender person, and the film received criticism for its poor writing, screenplay, narration, editing, and performances, with one review on IMDb saying, 2 hours, 20 minutes of pure torture. This has to be the worst movie of my lifetime. Please avoid this movie. A lot of this movie's criticisms come from the fact that the film is a Bollywood remake of a South Indian film, with detractors saying that this is a blatant cash grab and copy and paste. Look who's back! Meet the Spartans is a 2008 parody film written and directed by our good friends Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. Unlike Jason and Aaron's previous films, which spoofed particular genres, Meet the Spartans focuses on the 2006 film 300 with more minor references sprinkled in. Now, if you've been paying attention, you can probably guess how critics reacted to this film, but for the sake of it, critics called it a tired, unfunny, offensive waste of time that scrapes the bottom of the cinematic barrel. Mortal Kombat Annihilation is the 1997 martial arts fantasy film and the second of a series based on the fighting game series Mortal Kombat. The film largely follows the plot of the third Mortal Kombat, which has always struck me as a bold decision, as the Mortal Kombat games didn't really give you that much plot to grab onto. So that, mixed with poor product, led to boring and superficial film that we're left with. Mortal Kombat, for my money, is on the Mount Rushmore of shitty video game movie adaptations, with critics panning its shallow characters, low-budget special effects, and mindless fight scenes. Mortal Kombat Annihilation offers minimal plot development and manages to underachieve the low bar set by its predecessor. Movie 43 is a collection of sketches and spoofs that have been directed by one of 12 directors. And it exists, it definitely exists. This film has maybe the most star-studded, high-profile cast I've ever come across. It's got Hugh Jackman, Kate Winslet, Richard Gere, Halle Berry, Emma Stone, just to name a few. I mean, the list literally doesn't end. The film took almost a decade to get into production, as most companies just flat out refused the scripts. However, it ended up being picked up by Relativity Media for $6 million. The film was criticised for its excessive gross-out humour and lazy filmmaking, earning it an impressive 3 Golden Raspberries, including Worst Picture. My personal favourite review for this film is from Brian Gibson of View Weekly, who wrote, "An execrable waste cooked up by a Hell's Kitchen of directors and writers. Its death of laughter by committee, its title, because it's like one of those many asteroids out there, a dismal chunk of rock hurtling through an empty void without purpose." Ouch. The 2021 Indian action film Radhi, Your Most Wanted Bahi, sorry for the pronunciation, again, follows Radhi, an undercover police officer who goes on a manhunt to find the wealthiest man of the town who is secretly running a crime syndicate. Radhi was criticised by both critics and audiences alike for just pretty much everything. The story, the screenplay, the direction, unoriginality, the leads' performances and their chemistry, the action sequences, the VHX, the toxic masculinity, and police brutality just being the main ones. The Indian Express even listed this film as one of the worst to come out of 2021. Scary Movie 5 is the 2013 horror parody film and is the final installment in the Scary Movie franchise thus far. Who knows? The film was directed by Malcolm D. Lee and written by Pat Proft and David Zucker. The Scary Movie franchise has never exactly been good. I mean, anything even loosely tied to our friends Jason and Aaron is a bit stinky, but this by far is the worst in the series. Critics agreed that Scary Movie 5 was somehow even more juvenile than its predecessors and offers even staler pop culture references. I've honestly got no idea how to describe the plot of this film. All I can remember is it starts off with like a weird scene in which Charlie Sheen and Lindsay Lohan are making like a weird sex tape. Yeah, look, even though I've got some fond memories with the first Scary Movie, I'm glad that the series died with this film. But let's move on. The cult classic film Showgirls follows Naomi Malone, a hopeful dancer who wishes to make it as a Las Vegas showgirl. Like all great cult classics, Showgirls was an immediate box office failure, ranking in $37.8 million to the budget's $40 to $45 million. The film's controversy stems from its copious amounts of sex and nudity, as well as its poor acting direction, its characters, and of course its screenplay. The film holds what was a record 7 Golden Raspberry Awards and 13 cheeky nominations, and the colloquial phrase "Showgirls bad" has been adopted for films so bad that they're good. Son of the Mask is a 2005 superhero comedy film and a standalone sequel to the 1994 classic starring Jim Carrey, The Mask. The film, right off the bat, was off to a rough start when Jim Carrey decided they didn't want to appear in The Mask's sequel. And this isn't to dunk on the cast, but they ended up with, 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. The film stars Jamie Kennedy as an aspiring animator who's just had his first child born with the powers of the mask. The film was a critical and financial failure upon its release, being panned by critics and fans of both the original film and the comic books for its story, lack of the original cast, overuse of CGI, and inaccurate PG rating. Starting to see a bit of a trend here with sequels that probably should have never existed. Speed 2 is a 1997 American action thriller film produced and directed by Jean Dibon. Again, the movie was off to a bad start right off the bat, as Jean Dibon, after the release of the first Speed, stated that the film was a one-time story with no sequel potential. However, 20th Century Fox had different ideas, and Jean Dibon contractually obliged to produce and direct the sequel. On top of this, Keanu Reeves also declined to reprise his role. Quite a lot wrong with Speed 2, but honestly, most stupidly was the decision to set the movie on a slow-moving cruise ship, which, when compared to the high-octane action of the first movie, was an extremely lackluster in comparison. So after that decision, there just wasn't a lot anyone could do but hope for the best. The 1993 Super Mario Bros. Film centers around Mario and Luigi, who have discovered parallel universes to their own, and they must save Princess Daisy from the devious King Koopa, who is threatening to take over the world. Or something. It's a bit confusing. After suffering from a crazy amount of script rewrites, like a lot of script rewrites, the production going over schedule and over budget, and an all-round inconsistent tone and lack of faithfulness to its source material, you could say the Super Mario Bros. Super Mario blows. Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg star as father and son in the roaring 20% Rotten Tomatoes scoring film, That's My Boy. As a teenager, Adam Sandler's character gets his teacher pregnant, and then he has to raise his son as a single dad until he turns 18, where he then cuts ties with him. Years later, he re-enters his son's life with the hopes of getting away with tax evasion? It's a lot. The film was criticised for making light of statutory rape, incest, and child neglect, with one critic naming it the worst film of 2012. Columbia and Sony Pictures' 2017 masterpiece aims to encapsulate the uniquely human experience of societal estrangement and personal self-discovery in the Emoji Movie. Enlisting the help of High Five and a Hacker Woman emoji, because they apparently exist, the group travel through the blatant product place. The group travel through apps to defeat Smiler, who is like an evil emoji. I don't know. It's cringe, its jokes are already outdated, and all in all, it's just a bit boring. And like Cats, it has James Corden in it, which makes my bones burn. The Emoji Movie won 5 Razzies, the first animated movie to do so in these categories, and at the end of the day, did bless us with the Emoji Bop. The Last Airbender is a 2010 action-adventure film written, co-produced and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It's an adaptation of the anime-inspired Nickelodeon series of the same name. There really isn't much worse than a shitty film adaptation of a series that you love, and The Last Airbender hits hard. I still remember my utter confusion in watching this dog's dinner of a movie and wondering, I don't think I'm enjoying this. The film is plagued with poor plot, poor performances, and just horrid CGI, which it actually won the Razzie for worst eye-gouging misuse of 3D. And it also won Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Screenplay. Believe it or not, there was actually a trilogy planned for The Last Airbender, but due to its poor box office performance and critical reception, any plans for a sequel were quickly cancelled. Thank God. The Love Guru is a 2008 rom-com written, produced, and starring Mike Myers. The film follows Picta, an American raised in India by gurus who return to the States in order to break into the self-help business. His first challenge is to settle the romantic troubles and subsequent professional skid of a star hockey player whose wife left him for a rival athlete. The critics' consensus for the movie was that The Love Guru features far too many gross-out gags and far too earned laughs, ranking as one of Mike Myers' poorest outings. But the film did win the 2009 Razzie for Worst Picture, and of course, for Worst Screenplay. Sporting the coveted 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, The Ridiculous Six is a 2015 Western comedy starring Adam Sandler, Terry Crews, Jorge Garcia, Taylor Lautner, Rob Schneider, and Luke Wilson. The film follows White Knife, an orphan raised by Native Americans who discover that 5 outlaws are actually his half-brothers, and together they set out to save their wayward father. Critical consensus was that this film was every bit as lazy and offensive as its cast and concept would suggest. The Ridiculous Six is a standard couch fare for Adam Sandler fanatics and a must-avoid viewing for film enthusiasts of every other persuasion. The Room, coined as the Citizen Kane of bad movies, might well be the creme de la creme of shitty artistic endeavours. It really has all the ingredients of what makes a good bad movie. We've got horrible acting, an illogical plot, a questionable budget, and most importantly, someone spearheading the project that is borderline insane. To have all these factors come together is extremely rare. And I guess why The Room is so special and cherished. The Room is a 2003 drama written, produced, executive produced, directed, and starring Tommy Wiseau. The film centres on a melodramatic love triangle between good American banker Johnny, his deceptive fiancée Lisa, and his conflicted best friend Mark. A significant portion of the film is dedicated to a series of unrelated subplots, most of which involve at least one supporting character and are left unresolved completely due to the film's inconsistent narrative structure. The Room was unanimously panned by critics for its poor acting, particularly Wiseau's, screenplay, dialogue, production values, score, direction, and cinematography. The film is described by several publications as one of the worst films ever made. But I would say it might be the best film ever made. The Wicker Man is a 2006 horror film written and directed by Neil LaBute and starring Nicolas Cage. The film is about a sheriff investigating the disappearance of a young girl from a small island who discovers that there's a larger mystery to solve among the island's secretive neo-pagan community. This movie is probably best known for the "not the bees, scene. This scene encapsulates what is wrong with this movie, in that scenes that are intended to be serious and, horrific are actually hilarious. This is due in large part to Nicolas Cage's overly dramatic and unrealistic performance. And that, my friends, is the end of Tier 1. If you enjoyed this video and are keen to expand your own bad movie palette, Bert and I would really love it if you'd consider liking the video and maybe even subscribing to the channel, because it would really help us out a lot. And I guess with that being said, thank you for watching.